Welcome to the first part of this series, which is the swatching out of the colours. Now, I'm going to work through this with some fairly basic and low budget supplies. You can use different products. I just want to show you that this process can be done with just about anything that you own. And the whole idea with this process is not to reproduce this using exactly the palettes and exactly the colours that I use, but to make an assessment of the colours and the palettes that you own, and to help find out where you might be having problems with your palettes, help you identify why you're not getting the mixtures that you might actually desire. So, first stage is we're going to swatch out the colours that we have. In this case, I'm be using this little palette that's been put together by St. Petersburg White Knights. It's a fairly straightforward beginner style palette. It's got a nice range of, we've got some yellows, orange, reds, blues, greens, and some neutrals. We won't be swatching out the black because in this series we won't actually be using the black. But I'll swatch out all of the other colours. So what we'll need is a clean palette. I've got most of the colours already squeezed out briefly, some clean water and a towel to wipe our brush on, some paper towel to check that our brushes are clean when we move between colours. So the first stage is I'm going to record the information about each swatch and swatch them out. So, first colour is lemon. Now record the pigment information too. If you have multiple brands that you're using, it could also help to record the brand information too. So you use an abbreviation if you want to use an abbreviation, so it might be White Knights, lemon, and record the pigment code, which is in this case PY3. Now I find it's helpful to record this before I swatch out, because otherwise you've got to wait for everything to dry at the end. So this is a Cad Yellow Medium, pigment code PY35. This is Golden Deep. PO62. And we have Cad Red Light. And this is a PR108. Then we have a Carmine. This is a PR19. And we have Ultramarine. And then a Cerulean Blue. And that's a PB35. An Emerald Green. That's a PG7. Then we've got a green. And a Raw Sienna. PY5. 43. And then this is sepia. And this is a mixture, so we've got a PR102, PR187, and a PBK7. So we've got 2 reds and a black. So the PR102 is an earth tone. Rightio. So once we've got all that information, we'll just swatch these colours out. Now what we need to do is try to keep them fairly pure. I'm just going to actually squish these out a little bit more because they're the ones I've got in my palette are all a bit mixed. Now we really don't need very much pigment for this exercise, so don't go squeezing out huge quantities of colour if it's not necessary. Rightio. Now the other thing that I tend to do when I'm doing this is that I want a reasonably heavy application of pigment towards the top of these swatching boxes, and the little line across the top will help us determine the paint's opacity after we finish swatching them out. So get a fairly heavy pigment load, take a bit of that pigment out of your brush, dilute it down, and swatch the colour out to a more dilute colour. Remove more of your pigment from the brush so that we've got a range of values for the colour that we're testing. Now it helps to just blot your brush on a piece of white paper towel so that you can see that the pigment has been removed. Right, now on to the Cad Yellow Medium. Now this is an opaque colour, so I expect to see it sort of paint over that black line. Again, remove a bit of pigment from your brush, draw that colour down, leave more pigment, and finish off. So we can see a range of values that that particular paint can achieve. Then we want golden deep. Green. Dilute that pigment out to see the range. So then we've got Cad Red Light. Add a little bit more water to that. That's very much straight from the tube. Again, cadmium red light is another opaque colour, so we'll see that that black line, it paints over that black line. Opaque colours, they will have beautiful intensity and be quite strong, but they can create some limitations when they dry, just due to their opacity. But we'll see how this all goes. And this is part of why we should be swatching out and testing our colours, analysing how they behave under different circumstances. And that helps us determine where the strengths and weaknesses of our palettes are and what we can do to improve them. Next colour is Carmine. This is a lovely, so this is a slightly cooler red, so it leans a little bit more towards the blues, the violet. So we'll just wash that colour out a little bit more. going to check, because that's quite a strong colour, I'm going to check that I don't have just a hint left. There we go, all clean. Right, Ultramarine. One of my favourite blues. I really do love Ultramarine. It can be quite a granulating colour, but it's usually quite a strong pigment. It's just such a beautiful tone. So pull that out, dilute it further. As an artist in Australia, this really is the colour of the intense midday sky. So when you look straight up, it's ultramarine blue really. So right, and the second blue in this particular palette is Cerulean, and I'm going to have to squeeze that a bit more. Now this particular blue in this particular set is a very, I'm not sure if there's a problem with the binders or the pigment. It comes out quite chunky almost when you squeeze it out of the tube. Like, it's definitely a chunky kind of a mixture. And as you see when we paint it out, we're really quite an opaque colour. I mean, it's very pretty, but it also is not, it's a very difficult colour to get smooth out of the tube. And I'll do a little comparison between, I have some Cerulean from White Nights in a pan, which I find is far superior to this one out of the tube. So I might do a very short little review on that. But you can pull out, it's really a beautiful, beautiful colour. Just some physical challenges with this particular one. So now we want the emerald. So this is a PG7. So PG7 can also be cool. Like, so it's very similar to a phthalo green. So you can see this is an extremely intense, quite an unnatural green really. But as we go through, we'll see what the value of this, so how important this colour can be to a colour wheel. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit further so you can see it dilutes, but it's still quite, it's such an intense colour, and a little bit goes a very long way. Now we have green, the PG8. Now this is quite a deep colour, quite. Now I haven't looked up the information about this pigment, but I do believe it's a non-light fast pigment, so it would be potentially problematic. But it's a very beautiful colour. I think that this is really pretty as it's diluted out. Looks like it's got a little bit of granulation, but has a very high pigment load, quite intense. Oh, raw sienna. It looks like I don't have raw sienna squeezed out. A little bit there. So this is a PY43, so this is an earth tone. PY43 is often, that pigment is used in things like yellow ochres. So there's, you would have to be, you shouldn't actually just go on the name of a colour. The pigment number itself is actually quite helpful and interesting. A lot of brands will use a PBR7 for their raw siennas, and PY43 will be their yellow ochres. So, but these particular pigments can have a very wide range of colours. So you can't just say because it's this particular pigment it will always be this particular colour. Another classic example is actually your PV19, it can be an amazing range of colours. So this is the sepia, so again we've got quite a deep tonal value available to us with this colour. But we've made of two red tones, one of them PO102, which is another lovely earth tone, earth pigment, and then we'll pull that out to dilute it. So it's quite a warm neutral, as in it leans towards the red. Right, so that's all of our colours swatched out. Now we're going to cut those colours out and sort them out to create our colour wheels.